Logs can be of some standard type, for example, Zig, OS Query, AWS CloudTrail. However, many times the system they are monitoring could be writing logs in a proprietary format. Sure, it could be JSON or CSV, but could be free text, could be really anything. Extracting valuable information out of them could be really challenging. That's why I'm super excited to talk about next feature, Panther's custom schemas. So let's see how we can onboard some custom logs into Panther. Here we have a sample of such logs. It's actually in pretty good shape. They are, we see here the JSON, their new line separated. However, there's still some challenges. Here we see there's a timestamp field, which is in RFC 3339 format. Here we have a timestamp field in epoch timestamp. Here we have an email, which could be a very useful indicator, but it's deeply nested. Same thing for this username. So let's see how we can onboard this to Panther. We start by using a CLI tool. CLI tool generates the schema out of a sample of logs. We can see here the schema is generated. I'll copy it and go straight to Panther UI. I will create the schema here. We'll paste it. The schema was generated. I'll give it a name. Let's call it my security logs. I'll put a description that could be useful for anyone looking at logs in the future. We see the fields here. We have an example of this connection ID. We have marked it as type string. It's also marked as required equals true. So this means that we expect that all the events that receive from this log type will always have this field. If we receive an event that doesn't have this field, it will be discarded as invalid. Here we see some other field called date. It's of type timestamp. And the CLI tool that we used was smart enough to understand the format of this timestamp. Here we have another, we saw that we had another timestamp, which was of type epoch. Here the tool has marked this as number. It's actually not a number, so we'll correct it. We'll mark it as timestamp type, and we'll say the time format of it is actually Unix. We have here some indicator fields. So this indicator IP tells Panther to take this field and extract in a separate column in the data lake. We can do the same for other indicators. You have an email. I'll mark it as indicator. We'll say it's email. Here I will also mark this indicator username. We get some nice autocomplete capability, and we're almost done. One last thing, we have to tell Panther which of the timestamp fields to use as event time. So when Panther will consider that this event happened, I will pick this field, the date, and I will mark it as is event time equals true. I'm saving it, and I'm going straight to onboard these logs. Go to sources, go through standard onboarding, I select S3. I will have to fill some information. I will have to pick the account ID. I will select, put a label. I will say it's my security logs. I will put the bucket name. And then I select the type. I click on continue, tell Panther yes to all, to manage notifications, click on launch console. So now I'm being taken to CloudFormation. I will do the acknowledgement and I create the stack. So now what happens is I am creating a CloudFormation stack that creates necessary resources that will allow Panther to pull the logs out of my bucket. So the resources I'm creating are basically an IAM role. This role is pretty locked down. It has permissions only to read data from the bucket I told it to read. And it's also creating an SNS topic and wiring it up to Panther. So basically, whenever some new object makes it to the S3 bucket, Panther will be notified and will go and pick this data. So This usually takes a few moments. We see it's complete. I'll go back to source. I'll click on continue, and we're done. So here we see the source. I'll go back here and let's try. I will upload the samples to the bucket that we saw before that we already onboarded. So the data is up. Let's click on, let's refresh here to see if Panther got them. We see, let's refresh another time. Yeah, we see Panther received it a few seconds ago. So I should be able to query the data in the data lake. Let's go to Data Explorer. I will select for here the table. I run the query. Query will run for a few seconds. And yeah, here I have my custom data inside Panther. I can query them using Data Explorer, using indicator search. I can run detections on them. I hope you found this useful.